November 8th. It's Indigenous Veterans Day, a really solemn day to honor the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit warriors whose stories of courage and sacrifice have, for way too long, been treated like a footnote in our national memory.
So today, we're going to bring those legacies right into the spotlight. Because here's the thing, remembrance isn't just a passive thought. It's an action, right? It's something we all have to actively do to make sure their sacrifices are never, ever forgotten.
The story of Indigenous military service in Canada is just incredibly deep. We're not talking about something that happened for a few decades. We're talking about a legacy that stretches back over 200 years, even before Canada as we know it was a country.
And this timeline, wow, it really shows you the sheer breadth of that service. It started with Indigenous warriors being absolutely crucial allies to the British in the War of 1812. It continued with over 4,000 volunteering for World War I, and then more than 3,000 for World War II. And it just kept going through the Korean War, into modern conflicts like Afghanistan, and in peacekeeping missions all over the world. It is truly an unbroken line of defense.
And to put a number on it, get this, it's estimated that over 12,000 Indigenous people served in the major conflicts of the 20th century alone. In some communities, it wasn't just a few people, literally every single eligible person volunteered. Just let that sink in for a minute. That level of commitment is just astounding. So, with the history of service that deep, you're bound to have some truly legendary figures emerge. We're talking about soldiers whose skills, often honed through traditional ways of life and this deep connection to the land, made them incredibly effective, almost unparalleled on the battlefield.
Okay, let's start with the name you absolutely should know, Francis Pagamagabo, an Ojibwa man who became one of Canada's most decorated soldiers of the First World War.
I mean, his record is just staggering. With a patience and skill that came from generations of tradition, Pagamagabo had 378 confirmed kills and captured 300 enemy soldiers. His bravery earned him the Military Medal with 2 bars, an honor so rare that only 38 other Canadians got it in the entire war. But his fight didn't end in Europe. He came home, became chief, and spent the rest of his life fighting for the rights of his people, a warrior through and through.
And then there was Henry Louis Norwest, a Métis marksman who was so good, so effective, that his name became something whispered in fear among the enemy troops. His legend is just captured so perfectly right here on his grave marker. After he was killed in 1918, his own comrades wrote these words. It's just this raw, powerful tribute to the immense skill he had and the respect he commanded.
The legacy of these heroes just keeps going with Sergeant Tommy Prince. This guy wasn't just a hero of one war, but 2, World War II and the Korean War. And on top of that, he was a founding member of the legendary Devil's Brigade, an elite special forces unit.
Get this, he is one of only 3 Canadians ever to receive both the Canadian Military Medal and the American Silver Star for his service in WWI. During one famous mission, he walked for 72 hours through enemy territory just to repair a communication line, and that single action led to the defeat of an entire German battalion. And just like Pagamagabo, he brought that same fire home with him, appearing before Parliament to advocate for the abolition of the Indian Act.
But heroism wasn't always about sharpshooting. During World War II, Cree-speaking soldiers became one of the Allies' most powerful secret weapons. They used their language to transmit highly sensitive military messages, creating a code that the enemy simply could not break.
So all these soldiers, they were celebrated as heroes, as equals, as absolute legends on the battlefields of Europe. But the story changes, and it changes dramatically the moment they returned home to Canada.
You have to ask, right? After giving literally everything for their country, were they welcomed back as the heroes they were? The answer, tragically, is a resounding no.
Just look at this comparison. Non-Indigenous veterans got access to pensions, land grants, and all kinds of support programs. Indigenous veterans, on the other hand, were systematically denied those exact same benefits. Instead of getting their own farmland, many were just given these little certificates for pieces of reserve land that, let's be clear, already belonged to their own communities.
And this wasn't an accident. It wasn't some kind of oversight. It was official government policy. This quote right here lays the injustice bare. The government decided they weren't to be treated as veterans who had served their country, but simply as Indians on reserves, effectively stripping them of the honor and support they had more than earned. And the injustices just kept piling up. Many were forced to give up their Indian status just so they could enlist, While they were away fighting for Canada, hundreds of thousands of acres of their reserve lands were taken. Their own children were still being forced into the residential school system. And for decades, they weren't even allowed to lay a wreath at the National War Memorial on Remembrance Day. It's just staggering.
So, facing this profound disrespect, Indigenous veterans and their families began a long, difficult fight. Not for special treatment, but for the same recognition and justice that was given to all the others who served beside them.
This timeline really shows you just how long that road to recognition has been. It started at the grassroots level in 1994 with the creation of National Aboriginal Veterans Day in Winnipeg. It took all the way until 2001 for a national monument to finally be unveiled in Ottawa, and then years more for formal apologies and compensation packages to be issued. Every single one of these steps was hard-won.
And that brings us to today. The fight for recognition continues, but so does this powerful, enduring legacy of service.
As of 2021, there are over 23,000 Indigenous veterans in Canada. And as you can see, this is a diverse community of heroes, with nearly 11,000 First Nations veterans, over 10,000 Métis veterans, and more than 750 Inuit veterans. Their legacy of service is present in every part of this country.
And that legacy is not just a thing of the past. It continues to grow. Today, more than 2,700 Indigenous members are proudly serving in the Canadian Armed Forces, carrying on a tradition of service and sacrifice that is woven into the very fabric of this land.
So, all of this brings us to our role now. Knowing their history, the incredible bravery, and the heartbreaking injustices they faced, how do we move beyond just remembering? How do we actively work to ensure this profound legacy of service is finally and forever met with the honor and respect it has always deserved? Lest we forget.